At all. On the contrary, a lot of Kenyans were outraged by that possibility. And last week we did ask you on Twitter if you think that the government should reconsider that housing levy, and the responses that we got were overwhelmingly negative. I'll just sample two from Prince Buyore, who said taxes fund initiatives. Taxes are being mismanaged to fund theft. Who profited from the $100,000 shipping containers sold as mobile clinics? I hope it's not the similar crooks salivating over the housing scams. If the housing levy goes through, Kenyans will go to a referendum to repeal it. Now, this is just a sample of some of the negative opinions on this housing levy, and an overwhelming 85% of you voted that this should be reconsidered by government. Now, with us in studio is CEO for MySpace Kenya, Mwenda Thureniwa, who's going to help us dissect the role of real estate in bridging that need for affordable housing, because some would argue that the bid by government to have over 500,000 houses funded by this tax is noble, but then of course clearly the timing is wrong. What do you think about the timing of this whole housing levy issue?
Of course the timing is wrong.
Yes.
And
why is it wrong?
Due to the times.
Yes.
Of course, right now when Kenyans wake up every morning and seeing scandals of billions and billions, this is not the right time to ask for it. And as you could see in other parts of the world, of course the housing levy is there and it has worked well.
Yes.
But now, as you know, in a setting like what we have in Kenya today, you don't get mean to your wife the whole day, you beat her the whole day, then in the evening you're asking her for favors.
Yeah.
It will not work.
Yeah.
Definitely she will fight back.
Okay.
And that's the kind of situation we're experiencing in Kenya due to this housing levy at the moment.
Yeah, so you feel it is a question of the government not having done the right by the citizens' taxes and then asking for more? Is this your opinion?
Yes, already Kenyans are overtaxed.
Yes.
But basically, many need the houses, especially in the urban areas. And some of them feel like they once living in the village, why do I need to pay? I have a house already.
Exactly.
Why do I need to pay for a house which I have?
And a lot of people were actually asking us, what is this? What is it for? How will it help me? Who said we need this? If you listen to the story, somebody asked, who actually told the government that we need these houses built for us? So if you can tell us, could paint a picture from your perspective as a real estate expert, do you think the citizens across the country are even in a position to be funding this, given that they are also struggling to have their own different kinds of housing that is funded by themselves, not the government?
No, of course, it should not be happening at the moment.
No, yeah.
Purely is a wrong time to do it. I know by the end of the day, for us to have developments,
yes,
we need capital to build. These are high capital intensive. But if you look at the situation at the moment, what Kenyans need is not much of housing. What Kenyans need is affordable mortgages,
okay, and
better financing options
for
real estate. I mean, by the end of the day, if we have tenant purchase schemes, which we are working on developing,
yes,
whereby we will be able to, we can raise NSE or from other investors, buy houses and give people to tenant purchase schemes.
Okay.
Within a month, they are owning a home. Within 15 to 20 years, the home is theirs. They pay rent, but a little bit more, but they own by the end of the day. So with such initiative, housing will be easy. And if you can buy from the developers, they go develop even bigger and bigger projects. And those developers can develop even more than the government itself.
Yes. Now, when you think about these systems that you're suggesting, we already know when it comes to SMEs, there's a complaint that banks are not funding them. And also clearly, they're not proper systems to have affordable housing in place. If there were, this would have happened and there wouldn't be that request for a 1.5% housing levy. So what is the disconnect between, is it expertise that we're lacking? Is it the know-how that we're lacking? Or what is the real estate industry not doing to ensure that it contributes to affordable housing without this measure being implemented?
Good. What is lacking is proper mortgage. In Kenya, we have less than 30,000 mortgages. With a population of 40 million Kenyans, that's way, way, way below even than 1%.
Okay.
So the mortgage penetration has been very poor. And this been contributed, of course, due to the time the financials, the banks takes to give people loans. For example, if you want a loan today, by the time you get an offer letter, it takes you 3 months.
Oh, wow.
By the time you get financing and that draw down from the bank, another 3 months, 6 months. And God forbid you don't get denied by another bank. You have to walk to another bank and do the same
whole process. Yeah.
So it becomes very discouraging, which I think is one of the causes of housing problems.
Yeah.
But if the uptakers are there, if there's guaranteed uptake to the developers, many people will develop, even will have excess of houses in this country.
Okay. But when you talk about people getting mortgages, first of all, I'll just hold that thought and have you explain what is a mortgage, first of all, because we're assuming everybody understands mortgages and what they are and how you get them. What is a mortgage?
Okay, good. A mortgage is basically financing, is a hire purchase for houses.
Yes.
It's whereby you buy a house, the bank pays for you the house, then you pay pole going forward.
Yes.
You pay you pay it's called what?
Over a period of years.
Over a period of time.
Yeah.
So that's what a mortgage is.
Yes.
Ni maripo ya pole.
Basically like hire purchase, but for a house.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now when you're talking about that, I assume you're talking to the middle class, people who even have the know-how, but then you're having a section of the community who are in the ghetto, let's say, or in the slums, and they are a section of the community who don't even have the knowledge or the empowerment to be going for mortgages. They're really in need of services that will help them really simplify the process. So doesn't the housing levy that is supposed to fund this 500,000 houses cater to this particular section of community, and is it actually a good thing that they will be helped?
You see, many of the Kenyans live in the villages.
Yes.
I mean, only a small percentage live in urban areas.
But then this is meant for the urban dwellers, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
But you see now, for planning purposes, by the year 2030, almost 50% of population of Kenyans will be living in urban areas.
Okay.
So as the governments should be ready for this, where will these people live? As people get educated, they'll not be in the village calling jembes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They will want to be in the city because they have the education. They can use their knowledge, not their hands. I mean, basically, the need for housing is there. And it has to be done in the right way for people to be able to afford houses.
Yeah.
But especially for the low-cost housing, you see, it's kind of a difficult. Land is already very expensive as it is at the moment. I mean, to build a house and be able to sell an apartment for 1 million, it's an almost impossible task, especially through the housing scheme which is coming up.
Yeah.
For example, they're saying for a house, to construct a one-bedroom house for 30 square meter, it should be at least 32,000 per square meter.
Okay.
If you do the mathematics, that comes to 940,000. Thus, you have not included the cost of professionals,
exactly,
the cost of money, the cost of land.
Yeah.
How will you be able to sell that house at 1 million?
No, it's
already
not possible.
Costing itself is 1.2, 1.3. So it's an impossible task to start with. So the structuring and the implementation of it is not in order.
Oh, so it's not in order. Well, so when we look at the question of timing, said that this is part of the president's agenda for the big four, and housing is a big part of it. And we are talking about wrong timing. This is not the time. Kenyans are suffering. They feel like they're already hard pressed. Then have questions about how the taxes they're remitting are being used already before we get into having a new one implemented. So when would be the timing? Well, will timing be right? Because 2022 is not very far off. So I would think that this is a race to the finish line. We're trying to catch up, especially the president is trying to catch up and have his legacy wrapped up before it's time. So how would you project when would be the right time, or what would be the ideal circumstances for this to actually be implemented? Okay.
Ideal circumstances, I've been going, of course, through the social media and the news and seeing the reaction of Kenyans when it comes to houses. For example, they're saying it's not a priority at the moment.
Yeah.
For example, right now we have no classes. And I mean, if it rains, if it's no school, I mean, there are poor learning conditions.
Hospitals are a mess.
Look at police housing, is a whole mess. Look at housing, it's not there. Now, if you can't house your own people, how do you expect it to house the whole population? Of course, that's an impossible task. Charity begins at homes. Start small, with time, it will be there.
Okay. Yeah. When you look at the entire plan, in your view, forget the controversy surrounding it, does it make sense? Does it make sense, and can it be carried if we get right?
I mean, look at economies. It has worked.
Okay.
If you look at
That's
Africa,
an example, yeah.
if you look at USA and Freddie Mac, this is a housing fund which people contribute in their paychecks.
All right.
And it has worked. I mean, they don't have any deficit in housing. Everybody is decently housed, even if they live in projects.
Yeah.
They are better than most of the places Kenyans live in. You see, like in Nairobi, 90% of population in Kenya live in informal settlements.
Yes.
I mean, which needs to be worked on.
Exactly.
Basically, if you want a productive population by the end of the day, what they do between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. determines what they do between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if they live with the sharks, they work at home, flying toilets, I mean, dirty, stinky places. That's not the way the population should live. But I mean, there's a timing for everything, and there's a way and a system to do it.
Okay. Now, I'd like to take a look at some very, very livid comments that were made about this. They said, there was a hashtag that was talking about resist this movement, like resist the housing levy. So when you talk about a citizenry, that a large percentage of them need it, but then a large percentage of them feel like it is not a population. How can a priority? How does the real estate industry come in? How can it come in to bridge that need? Forget about the housing levy. What can be done by your industry to bridge that gap?
So our industry basically is for people to have money in their pockets in one
Which
way.
we don't have.
Or the
Yeah.
If people can have money in their
pockets,
pocket, if the small businesses can thrive, if the youth can get employed,
Yeah.
if, of course, the SMEs, the business people like in real estate developers, if there are people to buy the houses, they'll build even more than any government in this world. They'll build in every corner if the buyers are there. And what makes the buyers, of course, is the income, the money, employment, opportunities for them to earn money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was listening to some people, and they were insinuating that even the increase in oil prices has a ripple effect all the way to construction and the likes. Could you draw us a map to how this could happen and how it's affecting Kenyans even right now? Because if you're paying more for kerosene that I used to cook, and I'm paying more for the fuel, or the matatus are hiking fares just because the oil prices have gone up, how does it trickle down to real estate, and how does it affect the common mwananchi?
Okay, the price of fuel, of course, is a big factor in a construction site or construction industry. Basically, about 30 to 40% of the money spent in the construction industry goes to transportation. Everything you have to bring on site. You have to bring stones, you have to bring mchanga, you have to bring the steel, you have to bring everything. Basically, you have to bring. And even to manufacture these stones, stone cutting, you still need diesel.
Yeah.
I mean, in anything you do, fuel is important.
Is a factor,
Generators, I mean, to pump the concrete to the top, you need diesel. So the price of fuel is very, very critical to construction industry. Yes.
Now, when you look at your history, you've worked at the coast and you've worked here in Nairobi in the real estate industry, and you find that a lot of real estate companies focus on the lavish housing, the bigger houses, the mansions, or the more expensive side. What is it about affordable housing that does not attract the attention of real estate developers such as yourself?
Of course, as business people, it comes down to profitability.
Okay.
For example, I'll give you one quick example. To do high-end 10 units and to do 100 units of low-cost housing, you make the same number of profits. So do you want to be dealing with 10 people or 100 people to make the same money?
Yeah. Now, you have an incubation project. Tell us more about this.
Oh, okay. Yes, we just enlisted on Ibuka incubation on NSC.
Yes.
And this basically, we want to raise money. We want to raise $1 billion. That's to be able to do the tenants purchase scheme I told you about, whereby when we get this, when we raise these funds, we'll be able to purchase the houses from the developers and put them on tenant purchase schemes to people who want. Basically, it will be an easy process. It will be within a month.
we have approved you and we have put you on the scheme.
But could you explain in simpler terms this tenant purchase process for somebody who does not know what in the world that is?
Okay. Yeah. So in reality, everybody has to live somewhere.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, everybody pays rent somewhere. What if someone comes and tells you this house, for example, you're paying 30,000. I tell you now you pay 45,000. Within 15 to 20 years, this house will be yours.
Okay.
You know you have to live somewhere by the end of the day.
Yes.
And as you're paying rent, you're making the landlord rich and richer and richer.
Okay, yeah.
And you know with the rent...
for yourself, you're not in a proper way to own your own house. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're renting, you're not on the journey of home ownership. But when you are in the process of home ownership, for example, paying through tenant purchase schemes or through mortgages, then it makes it easier and easier for you.
Yeah. Now the Ibuka is championing this way of enabling people to own houses.
No, Ibuka is enabling us to raise funds.
All right.
You know, as we raise these funds, the $1 billion I'm telling you about, we'll be able to purchase houses and give them on tenant purchase schemes.
Okay.
Then the investors who invest on that program, they'll be reaping up the benefit every month, which is about 12%. It's a good return for somebody who invests in this program. Basically, it's like being a landlord and you're not dealing with the headache of caretaker, managing, hakuna maji.
Okay.
All those will not be an issue. You don't have to build. Just invest and you'll be getting your return every month.
But it's not always guaranteed that I will be able, maybe I lose my job or something happen. How does it work in certain circumstances where one just meets a financial hurdle that is not predictable?
No, what happens in such a case? For example, we'll give you 3 months for you to put your act together to be able to pay.
Okay.
Then if totally you can't be able to pay,
figure it out.
We will refund you the amount you have paid above what you could have paid as rent.
Okay.
For example, right now we talked about 30,000 per month. Then you have paid 45 million every month on this scheme. So the 15,000 above you paid, you'll get a refund. Then that house we put somebody else on the same scheme.
But we are talking about I don't know if the figures actually reflect what would be the reality, but I still get the sense of this affects the middle class more than the lower class that actually need houses the most. Is there a way that the real estate industry can shift and accommodate this part of the community? Because while the Big Four agenda is trying to encompass them, it has hit a snag with the halt by the courts. But how can the real estate agencies and industry shift their way of acting so that while they need profits, they can find a way of accommodating the lower class and actually providing affordable housing, which is actually much needed in the country?
Of course, as a business, I know the biggest market is the 10 million and below.
Yes.
The houses between 1 million to 10 million. That's where the masses are. That's where the business is. Even in our tenant purchase schemes, of course, we are targeting the 10 million and below, between 1 to 10 million. So basically, for any business to grow, we have seen the kinds of equity who got the small man, the small businessman, the small hustler there on the streets, who could not be banked by any other bank. But equity came and took everybody on board. And we have seen the successes. So basically, the future of business in Kenya, in Africa in general, we are looking at going down the bottom.
But then, do you foresee this happening anytime soon?
Yes, it will.
Really?
With time, like you've seen so many companies coming up selling houses for 4 million, 3 million. I mean, this is the direction which people are going. And this which needs to be encouraged more. And with the incentives from the government, I mean, basically, we need, for example, affordable land through PPPs, public partnership, public-private partnership, which is very important. Since the cost of land is a big component in a development, we need cheap fund, affordable finance. That's what probably the levy would help with. The developers can borrow on that kitty and build cheaply so that the public could be able to afford.
Yes.
Now, just lastly, if you could just explain the levy, because there are a lot of questions online about what is this, first of all. And guys, like, you're saying you'll pay us back. Is that even possible? Because we are waiting for some other payments that have not turned up. So could you explain to us how it works? Just break it down to make the people understand. Of course, it has been halted, but if it were to be implemented, how would this work?
Okay, in development, cost of finance takes a big chunk of it. Of course, it's expensive and it takes time, even to borrow. And if you look at today, even the banks are not lending to developers.
No, they're not.
The banks are not friendly to developers at all at the moment.
Yeah.
So now there needs to be some source of fund for developers, especially those who do low-cost housing, and a source of land, which government has land, and affordable money. When we have those two components taken care of, finance and land, then now we'll be able to have affordable housing, and the developers will be incentivized to go and do more and more housing.
And now, if the 500,000 houses are, put together, who would stand to gain? Like, what would be the criteria of choosing or picking? How would they go about ensuring that the people who are getting this housing are the people who actually need it?
For example, right now there's bomayangu.com, which is a website by the government for this affordable housing, and people are signing up. People are signing up as many as possible. We have over 200,000 people who are signed up already. So that shows there are people who are interested in this program. And again, if you look at it, the civil servants will really, this will work for them.
That would work for civil servants.
Yes.
I still have questions about the very, very lower echelon of the community, because at the end of the day, you don't want to find people in the lower tier dying in the projects or in the slums. It's really unfortunate, and I would hope that at some point government figures out how to actually support this part of the community far away from profits, because I know real estate is all about profits. I think that would be really wonderful. Perhaps anything else that you would like to add to this conversation?
Basically, to say is housing is a journey. You have to start from somewhere. For example, through the tenant purchase schemes, through buying plots, and then coming to sell them later and building a house for yourself and your family. Basically, it's a journey which you have to start from somewhere. It's not good to be negative, so negative, I don't need a house. When you live where? By the end of the day, you have to live somewhere. So that negativity is not good at all. I mean, you have to have a roof under you at
over
one
your
point.
Head,
and if it's yours, it's even better, it's more enjoyable, it's more prestigious.
Oh, that was very interesting information from you. MySpace CEO Mwenda Thuranira, you have been in the industry for long, and no other better person to tell us more about this housing issue than you. And I think that wraps up our discussion on your money. And of course, we were asking you on Twitter about the registration of political parties. Do you think it is necessary? Is it called for? And we need your information, you to tell us more about it, because a lot of politicians have been saying that this is not the time. We're dealing with development, but then we are seeing more and more politicians and political parties pulling together and trying to position themselves for the upcoming 2022 elections. So we were asking you on Twitter to give us your opinion. And here is Andrew Ongesa says, when we fall short of vision of where we want to be, we'll be trapped where we are. Today is a chance to settle for nothing less than your vision. Everything shows its worth at its proper time, so is vision. Nothing can limit the achievement of a visionary mind. That is Andrew Ongesa giving us a piece of wisdom right here about vision. Well, it's not directly linked to our question, but at least he has something to say about our discussion here. It's all about vision, and so those are your opinions. We had Dr. Ora saying, new twist as woman who gave birth at Shalom Hospital floor defends the nurses. Now that's some developing story.